Welcome to Top 3 Thursday, your essential guide to keeping up to date in a world brimming with endless events and innovations. Top 3 Thursday is more than just a podcast. It's your personal informant in an ever-changing world of events. So tune in and don't just keep up, stay ahead of the curve.
And we are the Ultimate Event Podcast, navigating one of the most stressful industries out there, being an event producer. And I'm so thrilled to have not only just on this episode, but for the unforeseeable future, my co-host, the one and only, you've heard him before on this podcast, his name is Kamal de Race. Kamal, how are you, my brother?
Great, Chris. What's going on, man? I've been enjoying watching these podcasts for some time. I'm glad you and I finally are able to connect and do a bit more in this, especially as it relates to our industry and how we can sort of kind of maybe navigate to help people within this industry, especially those small business owners, find ways to really, create trajectory in their business.
Both of us have thriving event companies. On my side, Imprint Group. On Kamal's side, AV1, making strides in the event industry for the last couple decades. So trust me, we can impart some valuable information to anyone who's trying to basically grow their business. And this topic where we came up with today is fresh off of me coming back from Chicago, meeting with a whole bunch of event owners, learning how to 10x their business. And I thought that it would be a great episode for Kamal and I to kind of impart some of that information to those individuals living in that probably $3, $5, $6 million, $7 million threshold and wanting to take it to the next level. And it absolutely probably could help if you're in the 10, 15, $20 million range as well. But our sweet spot is like probably in that 3 to 6 million based on what we're talking about right now. So today's episode specifically is dedicated to 10xing your event business and 3 steps to get there. And Kamal, I'm going to follow you by example today and start with the number 3 way to grow your event business. 10x it, not 2x it, but 10x it in today's environment. Number 3, Kamal, give it to me.
All right. Well, listen, Chris, 10x often seems like an unachievable number for a lot of people. When they hear that and then they do the math in their head, it's almost as if they get these roadblocks in their head, like, can I do that? Can I actually make that happen, and so on. And so the number 3 thing that you need to do to help to 10x your business is to look at yourself as the owner, the entrepreneur, the leader of your company, and start looking at the things not that you talk about doing, but the things that you are actually doing. And those are 2 different things. And let me explain. How often, Chris, and you and I have had strategy meetings for years, actually for decades, we've known each other that long. And how many times have we taken each other's advice, consultations, and so on, and actually put them into action? And this is where a lot of entrepreneurs fail. And the ones that succeed actually put things in action. They don't find the roadblocks. They're willing to fail. They're willing to fall forward, to use your term, Chris. It's okay to fail forward, and then pick yourself back up and keep going. Because here's what's happening. Your competition, they're doing it. And if you're not doing it, they're just going to Heisman you and go right past you because you're still thinking about taking action while they're already taking action. And it reminds me of when you and I met in the late 90s and we had these grandiose ideas and all this energy, and we were willing to take risks, to fail, to try, to build relationships we didn't realize we could build. And then certainly both you and I put ourselves in positions where we were able to 10x our businesses. So really the number 3 thing is to not only strategize, but put action into your strategies. And if you don't do it, your competition will. And then you will they'll 10x and you'll be lucky to 2x.
There's one thing you said, a lot of great comments, great pearls in there, but one thing you said in there that is a big navigator for people to 10x their business is you reference what's impossible. What's impossible in a 10x world? We've 10x our business like 3 or 4 times in 20 years. And again, so blessed and grateful to do so. But when you talk about an impossible number, when you're 2xing a business, that number is attainable. There's lots of roadmaps to get to that 2x feel, by making some tweaks along the way. But when you 10x something, you're totally transforming what your business is doing and getting to that impossible number. So let's say you are at $3 million or $5 million. When I say you're going to 10x that number, and from an impossibility in your head, you don't know how to do it, but there are other companies that are doing it. So let's say it's $50 million based on 10xing a $5 million company.
Yeah.
Hitting that impossible number may sound unattainable, right? Because when I 10x my business, I had no idea how to do it. I knew what it looked like, but when you make it clear what that number is, then you can start, as you just referenced, you start strategizing the executables of what it takes to get to that. So in line with the number 3 that you brought up, Kamal, in terms of executing it, also identifying what is that 10x and making sure that you're clear about what it is. You absolutely do not know how to get there, but you are absolutely understanding what it is. So number 3 is absolutely executing that impossible number of 10x. I love it, Kamal. Great.
Yeah. And Chris, just one golden nugget at the end here is you may 5x, but your goal is 10x, and you're going to get there and you might stall. And don't let that hinder you from going, because you've already done the work to 5x. What's holding you back from doing that exact same thing again? Just now trying different strategies, different formulas, what have you, and so on. It's okay to fail on your journey to 10x. I will tell you, you continue on, you will get there, and then it's like, well, what's next? Another 10x? Because you've achieved it once, and what's holding you back, And so, just sometimes being able to repeat what's working for you, fine-tuning it as you go, it becomes easier. The first 10x is the hardest. It's like they say, the first million is the hardest. Then after that, it just sort of kind of comes and goes. Same thing with 10x. The 10x rule is the exact same way. So
right. And guess what? And from a Dan Sullivan perspective, and Dr. Benjamin Hardy, who wrote 10x is easier than 2x, is what we're kind of referencing today. 10x is easier than 2x, and here's a great example of that. Actually, let's go to number 2 first. I'll bring up that example after number 2. Kamal, do you have the number 2 reason why you just got to 10x your business, focusing on 10x and how to do it? Hit me, Kamal, number 2.
Number 2. So surround yourself with the right people and remove those people that are holding you back. Now, this comes from the sort of psychology of personalities and who you surround yourself with. And I always say, Chris, a great leader is someone that can look somebody in the eye and tell them something they don't want to hear. And one of the hardest things people have or can do, especially entrepreneurs and leaders, is to fire somebody or to get rid of somebody. And you have to be willing to understand where your weakest links are, what's holding you back from getting to that 10x and being able to pull the plug. And in the same breath, you have to make sure that you know how to look and find the right talent to surround yourself with that will help you to get there. And lastly, as entrepreneurs, we are a bit of a control freaks. A lot of us are very much sort of the alpha, want to be the leader, want to control everything. I was that person. It took me a while to realize I have to let go and allow other people to flourish and then help, sort of be the wind behind all the sails. I didn't need to be the entire wind behind the sails to move the company. I needed other people to do that. It's once you get over that hump and you surround yourself with the right people and you remove those that are liabilities, it becomes much easier. But it's not as easy as it sounds, and you have to work on it. You have to be very disciplined. You have to read the books. You have to listen to podcasts like this. You want to get connected with Chris Starkey because he really knows what he's talking about when it comes to this, because he's done it, but make sure that you surround yourself with the people that can get you to 10x, not necessarily the quickest, but the most efficient way, and then position yourself for the next 10x, the next run.
You bring up the number two reason is basically you're saying it's the who, right? And again, I'm going to reference the
Yeah.
amazing Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy wrote the book. It's not how, it's who. It's not the how, it's the who, right? And I would personally have thought that this may be the number one reason. So I'm going to be very interested about what you bring up as the number one way to 10x your event business. But speaking specifically about the who's, it is about the who's, because when we have scaled our business multiple times, and I can reference this because Kamal was part of this journey. We started out as a bar mitzvah business way back in the day, right? We were doing probably 50, 60 bar mitzvahs in a given year, charging $1,500 to $2,000 and killing ourselves and traveling all over the place and, dancing with the 13-year-olds. We called dancing for grandma, and we did it every single weekend. And again, we knew what we wanted to create, right? It absolutely was not a bar mitzvah business. It was something much more grand than that. And so in our journey for Kamal and I, we had to identify, we knew what living in going from $40,000 our first year to $3 million 5 or 6 years later, and then going from $3.5 million to $35 million, and the list goes on and on. But again, I can tell you right now that Kamal and I did not know how to do it, right? But we started surrounding ourselves with those mentors, those people, or even employing those who's who did live in that world. And guess what we did? We just held the Coke can for them, the Starbucks can, whatever the beverage of choice, and we were the William Morris of the event industry, and we just represented these amazing who celebrities who took that vision of that 10x vision and made it a reality. So the number two, I'll go with that for sure, Kamal, on the who side. Again, I would have said that was our number one. So I'm going to be really curious, my brother, what the number one reason, number one way to 10x your business. Kamal, give me the number one way to do this.
All right. Hear me out here, Chris. Okay. When it comes to the event business, okay, it's all about relationships. All about relationships. AAR. Remember that. Write it down somewhere. Put it on your thing. Put a tattoo. All about relationships.
Ooh, AAR. Okay. All about relationships.
All about relationships.
Right.
Because I can tell you, and I know, Chris, you built your business on relationships. And I believe I would bet to say that a percentage of your business are people that worked with you 20 plus years ago. I can honestly say in my business, north of 50% of my business is repeat business because I've maintained those relationships over the years. But here's the thing, okay? Some people think building relationships is easy. No, it's not easy. It's almost like marriage, to a certain extent. You are married to your client in a way. You have to give that client their attention. You can never, ever take that client for granted. Let me remind you a bit about sales in general. We as entrepreneurs, we live and work and breathe sales. Call it what you want: direct marketing, direct sales, relationship building, BD, whatever. At the end of the day, it's sales. And so sales is always two people selling each other. The person selling you products or services, and this person selling you the no. Are you buying the no, or are you going to turn that? Yeah, they're selling you the no. They're going to sell you the no. I don't want your products or services, and you got to get past that to be able to get the yes. And then you have made the sale as opposed to you buying their no, which means they made the sale and you're done, and so on. That sales process or that sales journey has to have a foundation of a relationship that's being built. So it's not just about going in and trying to sell. There's a big journey about how to build successful relationships in any industry, but especially when it comes to the meetings and events business, because those relationships will drive business your way. And you as an entrepreneur, you as an owner of a small business, you have to understand that sales cycle and building relationships and how important that is to that cycle. And you also have to train your staff and your team. And I don't care if it's HR, operations, if it's your technical person or so on. Everybody in that office has to understand relationship building, because that is part of the sales process. And ask yourself the question, who's going to win? Am I going to sell to them, or am I buying the no? I don't want to buy the no. So to me, I'm going to make sure myself and my team are well prepared to close that deal. It all starts with relationship building. And Chris, as important it is to surround yourself with people, they have to understand that in this industry, if you don't build those relationships, where's that business coming from? It's going to come from your phone. You picking up that phone and just staying on top of it all the time, calling clients, calling leads, and so on. But when you build relationships, and you build a referral-based business based on those relationships, I will tell you the business will come. Of course, the service has to be able to support that. And we're going to talk about that in another podcast one day. But for now, you got to understand relationships are critical.
Right. Okay. So there you have it. Basically executing on the what. Okay. Number 3. Number 2 is your who. And then number 1 are the relationships. Now, I'm going to test this just a little bit. And honestly, I feel like this potentially is going to be a 2-parter podcast. So we're going to wrap this one up and start up another one based on going back to the number 2, the who's, because it kind of is tied into the relationships a little bit. But based on those relationships, there's only in a given business, if you're at $3 or $5 million, and I'm sure Kamal, you can speak to that. I know I can speak to it as well. When you get to 10, 20, 30, $40 million, whatever that number is, your relationships potentially have to change because it's difficult to create the same joyful vibe for the people that helped you out at the beginning. I'm not saying never negate those individuals. Don't burn those bridges, but maintaining relationships that, going back to the number 2, are your who's, because it's not just in your business who you're surrounding yourself with, meaning your employees or the other mentors. It's also the clients, the who's and the clients. Now some of those clients can also grow and scale their business with you and continue to be your who's. But the question will be, though, is when or should you eliminate some of those client who's that have gotten you to where you are? And I think that sets us up potentially for a really good podcast for next week, where we're potentially talking about the who's and should we eliminate them? Should we not eliminate them? Who are they that are really going to scale your business? I mean, what do you think on that, Kamal?
Chris, that's a great question, because you and I have both struggled with this, and we've had these conversations where I was once $1 million company and my average sale was $50,000, let's say. Okay. Now I'm much more than that, and my average sale is $500,000. Do I still want that $50,000 piece of business when the majority of my clients are spending $500,000 with me? Does it make sense? Is it part of my business structure? Is it part of the plan to 10x again, for example? And I have to make that conscious decision and make a strategic decision based on the company as a whole and my team and the direction that we're going in our vision and so on. Does that make me a bad person because I've turned down a customer that was there when I started my business? I'm not answering that question because I'm going to save it for the podcast, but I think this is a very important topic to discuss, because it kind of both is on the barrier of, growing your business. Is it the right thing to do? What is that culture of your company? Is it aligned with that? Or hey, it's just business, period, end of story. It's not personal, kind of a thing.
Yeah. And so to recap one more time, and as you were talking, I was also thinking about your number 3 in terms of executing what that what is. I think a stronger word potentially is focusing on that what, because if you're not focused on it's focusing on it, you continue to get sucked back into the things that are got you to where you are today, your past. And that's another anecdote from Ian Sullivan, Dr. Ben, is that are you living future face where you bring that to your present day? Are you living in the past and bring it to your present? And if we are bringing our past to the present, we're going to continue to operate and execute those pieces of business that got us to where we are, rather than truly focus on the executables that are going to get us to that what. Am I right?
Yeah. I always use this example, Chris, and I'm gonna wrap up this pod. I'm gonna let you wrap it up, but I'm gonna wrap up my point by looking at, in my opinion, who the GOAT of basketball is. We're just off the heels of the NBA Finals. Congratulations to the Celtics, all that good stuff. But I'm always a big fan of MJ, and to me, MJ is the GOAT. Now, MJ 6x'd his business. Okay, played played 15 years. He won 6 championships, right? He 6X his business, 6X. Okay. What did he do? He did all 3 of the things that we just talked about, but he did it on the basketball court. He did it in the locker room. He did it at practice. He did it in his personal and professional life to 6X his business. And if we all remember, he actually retired for a couple of years and then came back because he felt like, I've achieved this. I've gone there. I want to go and try another. I want to challenge myself to do something else to see if I can 10X that or 6X that or whatever. But it's a great example. And Michael Jordan is a great example of sort of kind of growth mindset, putting action to words, getting better, setting that goal and achieve it and so on. And then bringing people around him with him so that they can be the wind, behind his sails just the same.
Love it. Yeah. Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. So there you have it. Top 3 ways to 10X your businesses to focus on that what. Number 2 is your who. And I think we're going to dive into another podcast to talk a little more in depth on those who's. And the number 1 reason is relationships. We're going to dive into another podcast talking about those top 2 to really find out, is it worth it for those relationships and really who are those who's and who needs to be eliminated. So there you have it. For myself, Chris and Kamal, we are Top 3 Thursday. We will see you next week.
That's all for this episode of Top 3 Thursday. Remember, staying informed is the key to staying on top of things. You can find links to any resources mentioned in the show notes. And be sure to join us next time for more insights and stories that keep you connected to the pulse of change.